The Florida sun beat down mercilessly on the Naval Station Great Lakes training grounds that August morning, turning the asphalt into a shimmering mirage of heat. Seaman recruit Emma Castellanos had been awake since 0430 hours, her body moving to the familiar rhythm of push-ups, sit-ups, and the endless repetition of drills that had become her life for the past 6 weeks. At 22 years old, she was exactly where she'd always dreamed of being. Just 3 weeks away from graduating from boot camp and earning the right to call herself a United States sailor. Castellanos, double time. Chief Petty Officer Morrison's voice cut through the humid air like a blade. Emma's dark hair was pulled back, so tightly it made her scalp ache, sweat already soaking through her Navy PT gear, despite the early hour. She pushed harder, her legs pumping as she led her division to the obstacle course that had broken stronger recruits than her. Emma had grown up in San Antonio, Texas, the daughter of a single mother who worked 2 jobs to keep them afloat. Rosa Castellanos had cleaned office buildings at night and served lunch in an elementary school cafeteria by day, her hands perpetually raw and chapped from bleach and dishwater. Emma remembered watching her mother come home at midnight, barely able to stand, yet still finding the energy to help her with homework at the kitchen table of their 1-bedroom apartment. Mija, education is your way out, her mother would say, her accent thick with exhaustion and hope. You study hard, you go to college, you make something of yourself. But Emma had different plans. She'd seen the Navy recruiters at her high school during her senior year, watched them stand tall in their crisp dress blues, speaking about honor, service, and belonging to something greater than yourself. That night, she'd gone home and researched everything she could about naval service. The structure, the purpose, the chance to prove herself. It called to something deep inside her that she couldn't quite name. Her mother had cried when Emma told her she was enlisting instead of accepting the partial scholarship to community college. You could get hurt, Emma. You could die. Why would you throw away a safe future? Because I want to earn it, Mama. I want to stand on my own 2 feet, not because someone gave me a handout, but because I worked for it. I want you to be proud of me. Rose had held her daughter's face in both hands, tears streaming down her weathered cheeks. I've always been proud of you. Always. Now, as Emma vaulted over a wooden wall and landed hard on the other side, she felt that pride fuel every muscle fiber. 3 more weeks. Just 3 more weeks until she could stand at graduation, find her mother in the crowd, and show her that the sacrifice had been worth it. Move, move, move. Chief Morrison barked, his weathered face betraying nothing as he watched the recruits struggle through the course. Emma had learned in her first week that Morrison was fair but unforgiving, that he pushed them not out of cruelty, but because their lives might depend on the strength and discipline he was building in them now. Emma's division mate, Seaman recruit Jake Patterson from Oklahoma, was struggling with the rope climb ahead of her. His arms shook with effort, his face flushed crimson. Come on, Patterson. Emma shouted encouragement as she approached. You've got this. Hand over hand, just like yesterday. Jake looked down at her, gratitude flashing across his face before he grimaced and pulled himself higher. Emma smiled despite her own burning muscles. This was what she loved about the Navy, the camaraderie, the way they became something more together than they ever could have been alone. The obstacle course ended with a confidence climb, a 40-foot tower with cargo nets and wooden beams that simulated boarding a ship in rough seas. Emma had conquered a dozen times before, her small frame actually an advantage as she navigated the narrow passages and tight spaces. She grabbed the first rope, testing its tension before beginning her ascent. 20 feet up, 30, 35. The ground fell away beneath her, Lake Michigan visible in the distance, its waters choppy and gray despite the summer heat. Emma reached the platform at the top, breathing hard but steady. Chief Morrison was timing them today, and she wanted to beat her personal record. She grabbed the descent rope, the thick hemp rough against her palms, even through her gloves. The technique was simple. Wrap the rope around your leg, keep your body perpendicular to the tower, walk backward down the vertical surface. She'd done it so many times it was muscle memory now. Emma stepped backward off the platform, letting the rope take her weight. For a moment, she was flying, controlled and confident. Then something went wrong. Later, The investigation would determine that the rope had a manufacturing defect, a weakened section that had somehow passed inspection. But in that moment, all Emma knew was that the rope gave way with a sound like a gunshot, and suddenly there was nothing holding her except gravity and 40 feet of empty air. The fall seemed to last forever and no time at all. Emma's training kicked in. She tried to position herself, tried to prepare for impact, but there was no preparing for this. She hit the ground with a force that drove every molecule of air from her lungs, her left leg taking the brunt of the impact at an angle that nature never intended. The sound her leg made was something she would hear in her nightmares for months to come, a wet crack that seemed impossibly loud, followed by pain so intense her vision went white. She tried to scream but couldn't draw breath, her diaphragm paralyzed by the impact. Around her, she could hear shouting, running footsteps, Chief Morrison's voice cutting through chaos, ordering everyone back. "Don't move her! Corpseman! I need a corpseman now!" Emma's vision swam, the blue Florida sky above her seeming to pulse and darken at the edges. She could feel her leg. Oh, God! She could feel it, a wrongness that went beyond pain into something primal and terrifying. When she finally managed to turn her head to look, the sight made her stomach heave. Her left leg was bent at an angle that was simply impossible, bone visible through torn flesh, blood pooling rapidly on the asphalt beneath her. "Emma! Emma, stay with me." It was Jake Patterson, his face suddenly above hers, pale and frightened. "You're going to be okay. Help is coming. Just stay with me, okay?" She tried to speak, tried to say something brave or reassuring, but all that came out was a sob. The pain was everything now, consuming her entire world. She could feel herself starting to slip away, consciousness becoming slippery and hard to hold on to. The corpseman arrived, a young woman named Petty Officer Second Class Jennifer Martinez. Emma watched through a haze of pain as Martinez assessed her injuries, her movements quick and professional even as her expression darkened. "Compound fracture, possible spinal involvement. Get me a backboard and call for an ambulance. Tell them we need a trauma team standing by." "Am I going to die?" Emma whispered, the words barely audible. Martinez looked down at her, and Emma saw something in her eyes that frightened her more than the pain: pity. "You're not going to die. Recruit. But I'm not going to lie to you. This is bad. We're going to get you to the hospital. And they're going to take care of you. Just focus on breathing for me, okay? Nice and slow." The minutes that followed blurred together. The ambulance arrived, paramedics moving with practiced efficiency to stabilize her leg and spine. The ride to the civilian trauma center was an eternity of sirens and pain despite the morphine they'd pushed into her for. Emma drifted in and out, catching fragments of conversation. Significant damage to the tibial plateau. Possible nerve involvement. Going to need multiple surgeries. At the hospital, a team was waiting. Emma was wheeled through automatic doors into the fluorescent brightness of the emergency department, faces appearing and disappearing above her. A doctor, older with gray at his temples, leaned into her field of vision. "Emma, I'm Dr. Richard Foster, orthopedic trauma specialist. We're going to take you into surgery right now. Your leg is severely damaged, and we need to repair it immediately. Do you understand?" She tried to nod, but couldn't move her head in the neck brace. Will I be able to finish boot camp?" Dr. Foster's expression shifted, and Emma saw the truth before he spoke it. "Let's focus on saving your leg first, Emma. We'll worry about everything else later." As they wheeled her toward the operating room, Emma's last conscious thought was at her mother's face when she'd left for boot camp 2 months ago, pride and fear warring her eyes. What would that face look like now? What would happen to all those dreams, all those plans, all that hope? The anesthesiologist placed a mask over her face. "Count backward from 10 for me, Emma." 10, 9, 8. Darkness claimed her, and with it, the last remnants of the future she thought was waiting for her. Emma woke to whiteness. White ceiling tiles, white walls, white sheets tucked tightly around her body. For a moment, she couldn't remember where she was or why everything hurt. Then it all came crashing back. The tower, the rope breaking, the fall, the impossible angle of her leg. Her leg. Panic surged through her chest as she tried to sit up, but her body wouldn't cooperate. Her left leg was encased in an external fixator, a medieval-looking apparatus of metal rods and pins that went directly through her skin and into the bone. The sight of it made her stomach roll. "Easy, Mija. Easy." Her mother's voice, hoarse with exhaustion, came from her left. Rosa Castellanos stood from a chair beside the bed, her eyes red-rimmed and swollen. She'd clearly been crying for hours, maybe days. "Don't try to move. The doctor said you need to stay still." "Mama?" Emma's voice came out as a croak, her throat raw from a breathing tube they'd used during surgery. How long?" 3 days. You've been in and out since the surgery." Rosa took her daughter's hand carefully, avoiding the 4-line. "They had to put you back under yesterday for another operation. Your leg they said was very bad, Emma." The door opened, and Dr. Foster entered, followed by a younger Dr. Emma didn't recognize and a woman in a Navy uniform, a lieutenant commander with the medical insignia. Emma's heart sank at the sight of the Navy officer. She knew what this meant. "Good morning, Emma. I'm glad to see you awake and alert." Dr. Foster pulled up a rolling stool and sat down, his expression professionally neutral in that way doctors had when they were about to deliver bad news. "This is Dr. Sarah Chun, one of our orthopedic residents who assisted in your surgeries, and Lieutenant Commander Patricia Williams from Naval Medical Command. They're here because we need to have a serious conversation about your injury and what it means for your future." Emma felt her mother's grip tighten on her hand. "How bad is it?" Dr. Foster pulled up a tablet, showing her an x-ray that made no sense to her untrained eyes, just a chaos of metal hardware and bone fragments. "You sustain what we call a Schatzker type 6 tibial plateau fracture, which is one of the most severe knee injuries we see. Essentially, the top of your shin bone was shattered into multiple pieces when you landed. We spent the last 3 days reconstructing it with plates, screws, and bone grafts." He swiped to another image, this one showing her leg in profile, with what looked like a spider web of metal inside. "Additionally, you suffered significant soft tissue damage, torn ligaments, damaged cartilage, and what we're most concerned about, possible nerve damage. The peroneal nerve, which controls movement and sensation in her lower leg and foot, was compressed during the injury." Emma's medical knowledge was limited, but she understood enough. "What does that mean? Will I be able to walk?" Dr. Chen leaned forward, her expression kind but honest. "Right now, you don't have sensation in your foot, and you can't move your toes. That could be temporary swelling and trauma, or it could be permanent nerve damage. We won't know for certain for several weeks, possibly months." The room seemed to tilt. Emma stared at her foot, visible beyond the external fixator, and tried to wiggle her toes. Nothing. She couldn't feel them, couldn't move them. It was like they belonged to someone else. "But I will walk again, right?" Her voice came out small, childlike. "I mean, eventually." Dr. Foster and Dr. Chin exchanged a glance that made Emma's blood run cold. Lieutenant Commander Williams stepped forward, her voice gentle but firm. "Emma, I'm here to explain your medical status with regard to your naval service. Given the severity of your injuries, Naval Medical Command has made the determination that you are unable to continue with your training cohort." "No." The word came out automatically, a reflex. "No, I just need a few weeks to heal. I can catch up. I can..." "Emma." Williams' voice was kind but unyielding. "Your injuries are career-ending. Even in the best-case scenario, where you regain full function of your leg, which Dr. Foster will tell you is unlikely, the recovery timeline is 12 to 18 months. The Navy cannot hold a boot camp slot for that duration, and frankly, the physical standards required for naval service may be beyond what your leg will be capable of even after full recovery." The words hit like physical blows. Career-ending, unable to continue. Beyond what your leg will be capable of. What are you saying? Emma's voice was rising now, panic sharpening every word. "Are you kicking me out? I fell during training. This happened while I was serving." "You're going to receive a medical discharge," Williams explained. "It will be honorable, and you'll be entitled to full medical benefits through the VA for treatment of your service-connected injury. But Emma, you need to understand, the damage to your leg is extensive. The likelihood of you meeting the physical readiness standards required for any branch of military service is extremely low. Rosa made a sound somewhere between a sob and a gasp. Emma couldn't look at her mother, couldn't bear to see the relief that was probably washing over her face right now. Her daughter was coming home, broken but safe, the dangerous dream finally over. How low? Emma demanded, looking directly at Dr. Foster. What are my actual chances of walking normally again? Not military standards, just normal. Dr. Foster met her eyes steadily. If we're being completely honest, with the nerve damage and severity of the fracture, I'd estimate you have about a 20 to 30% chance of regaining enough function to walk without assistive devices. A cane, maybe crutches for the rest of your life. That's the realistic expectation. Running, jumping, the kind of physical activity required for military service? Emma, I'm sorry, but that's not going to happen. The room went silent, except for the quiet beeping of Emma's monitors and her mother's muffled crying. Emma stared at the ceiling, feeling something inside her crack and crumble. 3 weeks. She'd been 3 weeks away from graduation, from proving to herself and everyone else that she could do this, that she was strong enough, determined enough, worthy enough. There's no chance. Her voice was barely a whisper. No possibility at all? Dr. Chin spoke up, her voice gentle. Medical recovery isn't always predictable. We've seen people surprise us before. But Emma, I think it's important that you have realistic expectations. The injury you sustain would end the career of a professional athlete. The amount of physical therapy, pain, and limitations you're going to face. It's going to be the hardest thing you've ever done just to walk to your mailbox. I want to try. The words came out hard, definitive. I want to do everything possible to recover. Physical therapy, experimental treatments, whatever it takes. I'm not giving up. William shook her head slightly. Emma, determination is admirable, but I'm not asking for your permission, ma'am. Emma's voice was stronger now, anger burning through despair. You said I'm getting a medical discharge. Fine, but once I'm a civilian, my recovery is my business, and I'm going to prove every one of you wrong. Dr. Foster stood, his expression unreadable. I admire your spirit, Emma, but I've been doing this for 30 years, and I need you to understand what you're facing. The pain alone will be unbearable at times. The physical therapy will feel like torture. You're going to want to quit 1,000 times. And even if you push through all of that, the odds are still against you. I don't care about odds. Emma looked at her mother, saw the fear and love warring on her face, and felt something harden inside her chest. My whole life, people have told me what I can't do, that I can't afford college, that I can't make something of myself, that I can't serve my country. And I've been 3 weeks away from proving all of them wrong when this happened. So no, I'm not going to accept that this is it. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life wondering what if. Rose was crying openly now, but she squeezed Emma's hand. Mija, you don't have to prove anything to anyone. You can come home. I'll take care of you. We'll figure out together. I know, Mama. Emma's own eyes were burning now. Tears she refused to let fall building behind them. But I have to prove it to myself. Do you understand? I have to know I gave everything I had. Lieutenant Commander Williams cleared her throat. The discharge paperwork will take a few weeks to process. You'll remain on medical orders until then, with all your medical care covered. After that, you'll transition to VA care. If you need help navigating those systems, please don't hesitate to reach out. After the doctors and the Navy officer left, Emma and her mother sat in silence. The way of the future pressed down on them both. A future that looked nothing like either of them had imagined just a week ago. The recruits for my division, Emma said finally. Did anyone come to see me? Rosa nodded. That chief of yours, Morrison? He came twice. Said your division wanted to visit, but they're not allowed to leave base during training. He left you something. She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. Inside was a card signed by every member of Emma's division. 47 signatures in all. They'd written messages around the edges. Get well soon, Castellanos. You're the strongest person I know. Can't wait to see you back in uniform. The last one made Emma's throat tighten painfully, but it was a note from Chief Morrison that broke her, written in neat, precise handwriting. Recruit Castellanos. The measure of a sailor isn't whether they fall. It's whether they have the courage to get back up. You have 3 weeks until graduation. Show me what you're made of, Chief Morrison. Emma read it 3 times, then carefully folded it and held it against her chest. 3 weeks. It was impossible, insane, completely unrealistic given everything the doctors had just told her. But somewhere in the wreckage of her shattered dreams, a tiny spark of defiance refused to be extinguished. She looked down at her ruined leg, at the metal apparatus holding her bones together, at the foot she couldn't feel or move. The logical part of her brain knew Dr. Foster was right. The odds were astronomical. The pain would be unbearable. She should accept the discharge, go home, figure out a new path forward. But Emma had never been particularly good at doing what she should. "Mama," she said quietly, "I'm going to need your help." Rosa wiped her eyes, studying her daughter's face. "With what?" "With keeping a promise I just made to myself." Emma's jaw set in that stubborn line her mother knew so well. "I'm going to walk at that graduation, Mama. I'm going to wear that uniform. And I'm going to show every single one of them that impossible is just another word for difficult." Rosa Castellanos looked at her daughter, broken, drugged, facing recovery that terrified even the doctors, and saw the same determination that had gotten her through 18 years of poverty, the same fire that had led her to enlist in the first place. Against every instinct that told her to protect her child, to encourage her to accept limitations and find an easier path, Rosa did the only thing a mother could do when her daughter was as determined. She squeezed Emma's hand and said, "Then let's get to work." The San Antonio heat in September was brutal, turning Emma's mother's small apartment into an oven despite the ancient air conditioner rattling in the window. Emma lay on the couch where she spent most of the past 2 weeks since her medical discharge from the Navy, staring at the water-stained ceiling and wondering if Dr. Foster had been right about everything. The pain was worse than anything she'd imagined, not just a leg, though that was constant, a burning, throbbing agony that the medications barely touched, but the phantom sensations in her foot that she still couldn't feel or move. Her brain kept insisting her toes were there, that she could wiggle them, but when she looked down, they remained stubbornly still. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table. Another message from Jake Patterson, her boot camp division mate. He'd been texting every few days since she got home, always the same kind of update. The division had graduated on time. He'd been assigned to a destroyer out of Norfolk. He hoped she was recovering well. The messages were kind, well-intentioned, and they made Emma want to throw her phone across the room. They'd all moved on. Her division, the people she'd trained with, bonded with, suffered alongside. They were sailors now, starting their careers, living the life she was supposed to be living. And she was here, unable to walk 10 feet to the bathroom without crutches, unable to put any weight on her left leg, unable to do anything except exist in this limbo of pain and broken dreams. "Meja, your physical therapist, is here." Her mother's voice came from the kitchen, carefully neutral. Rose had learned not to sound too cheerful. It only made Emma's mood worse, but not too sympathetic either. Walking the line between support and pity was exhausting for them both. Marcus Webb let himself in, a large black man in his mid-40s with kind eyes and the build of someone who'd been an athlete in another life. He'd done 2 tours in the Army before an IED in Afghanistan had sent him home with shrapnel in his hip. Now he worked at the VA, specializing in treating veterans with catastrophic injuries. "How's my favorite patient today?" he asked, setting down his therapy equipment with the ease of long practice. "I'm your only patient who's not actually a veteran," Emma muttered, not bothering to hide her bitterness. "Just a washout who couldn't make it through boot camp." Marcus pulled up a chair, not moving toward her leg yet. This was part of their routine. He'd learned that Emma needed to vent before she could focus on the work. "You get medically discharged due to an injury sustained during service. You're a veteran in my book. More importantly, you're someone who hasn't given up yet, which makes you worth my time." "Haven't given up yet," Emma repeated flatly. "Give me another week or 2. I'm getting there." "Emma," Marcus's voice went firm, the tone of someone who dealt with a lot of wounded soldiers who'd lost hope. "We've been at this for 2 weeks. I told you it would be 6 months before you saw significant progress. You expecting to run a marathon by now. I'm expecting to feel something. Emma's voice cracked despite her attempt to keep it steady. Anything. My toes, my foot, my ankle. I can't feel any of it, Marcus. And the doctors keep saying they don't know if I ever will. So what's the point? Why am I putting myself through this torture if I'm never going to walk normally again anyway? Marcus was quiet for a moment, studying her with those perceptive eyes that seemed to see more than she wanted to reveal. You remember what you told me the first day we met? What your goal was? Emma closed her eyes. She remembered. It had been 10 days after the surgery, when they transferred her to the VA hospital for continued care. Marcus had asked her what she wanted to achieve through physical therapy, and she looked him dead in the eye and said, I want to walk at my division's next graduation. I want to wear my uniform and show everyone that I didn't quit. That was before I knew how bad it really was. Emma said quietly, before I understood that wanting something doesn't make it possible. Maybe. Marcus stood and moved her leg, beginning his examination with gentle, practiced hands. Or maybe you're just in the hardest part, the part where you can't see the progress yet, where every day feels the same, where the pain makes you question everything. That's the part where most people quit, Emma. That's the valley where dreams go to die if you let them. He began manipulating her ankle, moving it through ranges of motion that she could see but not feel. It was surreal, watching her own body move without any sense of it happening. But here's what I know after 15 years of doing this job. The body is more resilient than we think. Nerve can heal. Function can return. I've seen people the doctors wrote off completely surprise everyone, including themselves. And I've seen people hope for miracles that never come. Emma shot back. What if I'm not one of the success stories? What if I'm the cautionary tale physical therapists tell their next patients? Marcus finished his examination and sat back down, his expression serious. Then you'll still be someone who fought instead of someone who surrendered. Emma, I can't promise you that you'll walk at that graduation. Hell, I can't promise you'll walk without a cane for the rest of your life. But I can promise that if you quit now, you'll spend the rest of your life wondering what if. Is that the story you want to tell yourself? Before Emma could answer, her mother appeared from the kitchen, carrying a glass of water and Emma's pain medication. Rose had aged 10 years in the past month, new lines etched around her eyes, gray spreading through her dark hair. Emma hated knowing she was the cause of that aging. Here, Mija, time for your pills. Rose's voice was gentle, but Emma heard the exhaustion underneath. Her mother had taken a leave of absence from both her jobs to care for Emma full-time, and they were burning through savings at an alarming rate. The VA covered medical care, but not groceries, not rent, not the dozens of small expenses that added up to financial catastrophe. Mama, you look tired. Did you sleep at all last night? I'm fine. Rose's automatic response, the one she'd been giving Emma her whole life. Don't worry about me. But Emma did worry. She worried constantly, not just about her own recovery, but about the burden she'd become, the weight she placed on her mother's already bowed shoulders. This was supposed to be the time when Emma finally paid her mother back, when she sent money home from her Navy salary, when she lifted some of the endless financial pressure. Instead, she became one more expense, one more problem solved. After Marcus left, with strict instructions for exercises Emma was supposed to do 3 times a day, Emma maneuvered herself to the bathroom on her crutches. The journey, maybe 30 feet total, left her sweating and exhausted. She caught sight of herself in the mirror and barely recognized the reflection staring back. The Emma in the mirror was gaunt, her face hollow with pain and weight loss. Her hair, which she kept military short during boot camp, was growing out unevenly. Her eyes had dark circles underneath them, evidence of countless sleepless nights. But worst of all was the look in those eyes, defeated, hopeless, lost. She turned away from the mirror, unable to stand looking at herself for another second. Back on the couch, Emma picked up her phone and scrolled through her photos until she found the ones from boot camp. There she was, standing in formation with her division, chin up, shoulders back, pride evident in every line of her body. That Emma seemed like a different person, someone from another lifetime. Her thumb hovered over Jake Patterson's last message. He'd sent a photo of himself on the deck of his destroyer, the ocean vast and blue behind him, his uniform crisp and new. The caption read, "Thinking about you, Emma. Hope you're doing better. We all miss you." Emma started typing a response 3 times and deleted it each time. What could she say? That she was lying on her mother's couch, unable to walk, unable to work, unable to do anything except slowly destroy what was left of her family's finances? That the dreams they'd all shared seemed like cruel jokes now? Instead, she put the phone down and closed her eyes, trying to do the breathing exercises Marcus had taught her for managing pain. In for 4 counts, hold for 4, out for 4. But all she could think about was Chief Morrison's note, still tucked in her wallet. Show me what you're made of. What was she made of? Right now, it felt like nothing but broken pieces and false hope. The apartment was quiet except for the sound of her mother cooking in the kitchen, the familiar rhythms of knife on cutting board, oil sizzling in a pan. Rosa was making Emma's favorite, chicken and adobo, the smell of garlic and spices filling the small space. It was a small comfort in a world that had offered precious few lately. Emma reached down and touched her foot, pressing hard enough that she should have felt something. Nothing, just the disconnect between what her eyes saw, her hand pressing against skin, and what her body reported, which was silence, absence, loss. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was an email from Lieutenant Commander Williams, the Navy medical officer who delivered her discharge papers. Emma almost deleted it without reading, but something made her open instead. The email was brief. "Emma, I wanted to follow up and see how you're doing. I know the transition to civilian life can be difficult, especially given the circumstances of your discharge. I wanted you to know that if you need help navigating VA resources, or if there's anything I can do to support your recovery, please reach out. You may not be in uniform anymore, but you're still part of our Navy family. LCDR Williams." Emma read it twice, then a 3rd time. Still part of our Navy family. The words should have been comforting, but instead, they felt like salt in an open wound. She wasn't part of anything anymore. She was adrift, unmoored, lost in a sea of pain and uncertainty, with no shore in sight. "Emma, dinner's ready." Her mother's voice called from the kitchen. Emma grabbed her crutches and began the painful process of standing. Every movement was a negotiation, a careful calibration of weight and balance and pain management. By the time she made it to the small kitchen table, she was breathing hard, sweat beading on her forehead despite the air conditioning. Rosa had set out the food. Chicken and adobo, rice, beans, tortillas made from scratch the way Emma loved. It was too much food for 2 people, especially when one of them barely had an appetite. But Emma knew her mother needed to do this, needed to show love the only way she knew how. They ate in silence for a few minutes before Rosa spoke. "Marcus seemed pleased with your progress today." Emma snorted. "Mama, I can't even feel my foot." "What progress?" "The swelling in your knee is down. The incisions are healing well. These are good things, Mija. These are the easy things." Emma pushed rice around her plate, not really eating. "The hard thing, the only thing that actually matters, isn't happening. My foot is dead, Mama. The nerve is dead. And everyone's too afraid to just tell me the truth." Rosa set down her fork, her expression hardening in that way it did when she'd reached her limit. "Está bien. You want truth? Here's truth. Yes, your injury is serious. Yes, recovery is uncertain. Yes, you might never serve in the military. But you're alive, Emma. You're alive and you're here, and you have people who love you and want to help you. That's more than some people get. I know that, but..." "No." Rosa's voice was sharp now, cutting through Emma's self-pity like a blade. "No, but... I've watched you lie on that couch for 2 weeks feeling sorry for yourself, and I've been patient because I know you're in pain. But I didn't raise a quitter, Emma Castellanos. I didn't work 2 jobs for 18 years, so you could give up the first time life knocked you down." Emma stared at her mother, shocked by the sudden intensity. Rosa's eyes were fierce, her hands clenched into fists on the table. "You think I don't understand disappointment?" Rosa continued. "You think I don't know what it's like to have your dreams taken away? I wanted to be a teacher, Emma. Did you know that? When I was young in Mexico, before I came here, I dreamed of teaching children. But life had other plans. Your father left. Money was tight. I cleaned toilets instead. And you know what? I didn't quit. I didn't lie around feeling sorry for myself. I got up every day and did what needed to be done. Tears were streaming down Rosa's face now, years of exhaustion and sacrifice breaking through. So you have two choices, Mija. You can lie on that couch until your leg heals enough to hobble around, and then you can spend the rest of your life wondering what might have been. Or you can fight. You can do the work, endure the pain, and see where your strength takes you. But either way, you need to decide. Because I can't watch you destroy yourself with self-pity anymore. I just can't. The silence that followed was deafening. Emma felt like she'd been slapped. But beneath the sting was something else, a recognition of truth she'd been avoiding. Her mother was right. She'd been wallowing, using her pain as an excuse to stop trying, to stop fighting. "I'm scared, Mama," Emma whispered finally. The admission costed her everything. "I'm so scared that I'll do all the work and it won't matter. That I'll push through all the pain and still end up broken. I don't know if I'm strong enough for that." Rosa reached across the table and took Emma's hand. Her callous fingers rough but gentle. "Mija, strength isn't being unafraid. Strength is being terrified and doing it anyway. And you are strong enough. You've always been strong enough. You just have to remember who you are." That night, after her mother had gone to bed, Emma lay awake staring at the ceiling. Her leg throbbed despite the medication, a constant reminder of how far she was from where she wanted to be. But for the first time since the accident, she felt something else underneath the pain and fear, a tiny spark of the determination that had gotten her into the Navy in the first place. She thought about Chief Morrison's note, about her division graduating without her, about the uniform that now hung in her mother's closet, unworn and unearned, about all the people who told her what she couldn't do, what she couldn't become, and she thought about her mother, sacrificing everything, always choosing to fight instead of surrender. Emma reached down and touched her foot again, pressing hard, willing sensation to return. Still nothing. But maybe Marcus was right. Maybe nerves could heal. Maybe miracles could happen. Or maybe they couldn't. And she'd work herself to exhaustion chasing an impossible dream. But her mother was right about one thing. Emma would rather be someone who fought and failed than someone who never tried at all. The next morning, Emma was awake before dawn. She'd barely slept, but she felt more alert than she had in weeks. When Marcus arrived for her therapy session, he found her already attempting the exercises he prescribed, her face tight with pain, but determined. "Well," he said, unable to hide his surprise, "someone woke up on the right side of the bed." "Someone decided to stop making excuses," Emma replied, breathing hard from the effort of the exercises. "You said 6 months until significant progress, right?" "That's the timeline, yes." "Then we need to accelerate. Double sessions, if possible. I need to be walking, really walking, not just hobbling on crutches, in less time than that." Marcus studied her carefully. "Emma, I appreciate the enthusiasm, but recovery has its own timeline. We can't rush." "My division's next boot camp graduation is in 3 months," Emma interrupted. "Chief Morrison invited me, said I should come see the new recruits graduate, meet some of the staff. It was a pity invitation. Marcus, we're so sorry about what happened to you, gesture, but I'm going to turn it into something else." She met his eyes, and Marcus saw something there he hadn't seen before. Not just hope, but determination backed by acceptance of cost. "I'm going to walk into that graduation, Marcus. No crutches, no cane, no assistive devices. I'm going to stand in the crowd and watch those recruits graduate, and I'm going to prove to everyone, including myself, that falling didn't break me, that I'm still standing." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, he smiled. "That's a hell of a goal, Emma. Possibly insane, probably impossible. Definitely going to hurt more than anything you've experienced so far. I know. If we're going to do this, you need to understand what you're signing up for. Double therapy sessions mean double pain. We're going to push you to your absolute limits, and then past them. There will be days you hate me, days you hate yourself, days you want to quit so badly you can taste it. I know, Emma repeated. But I'd rather hurt trying than hurt from giving up. So, what we do first? Marcus's smile widened. First, we find out if there's any nerve function at all in that foot. Because if there isn't, if the damage is permanent, then we need to have a serious conversation about realistic goals versus fantasy. He pulled out what looked like a tuning fork, explaining it was actually a precise medical instrument for testing nerve response. This is going to vibrate at specific frequencies. If your nerves are intact but just traumatized, you might be able to feel it even when you can't feel regular touch. It's a long shot, but it's where we start. Emma watched as he placed the instrument against various points on her foot, her shin, her ankle. Nothing. She felt nothing. The spark of determination that had burned so bright that morning began to flicker. Then Marcus placed it on the ball of her foot, right at the base of her toes, and Emma gasped. It wasn't much, barely a whisper of sensation, like someone touching her from very far away. But it was something. Did you feel that? Marcus's voice was intense, focused. I think so. Maybe. I'm not sure. He did it again, and this time Emma was certain. A faint vibration, a ghost of sensation, but real. Tears sprang to her eyes. That's your nerve, Emma. It's damaged, traumatized, maybe only partially functional. But it's not dead, which means we have something to work with. Marcus's grin was triumphant. Welcome to hell. Recruit. Let's see what you're made of. 3 months. 90 days. 2,160 hours. Emma could measure the time in any unit she wanted, but it all added up to the same thing. The longest, most painful, most transformative period of her life. The first month had been pure torture. Marcus kept his promise about pushing her limits, and Emma discovered she'd vastly underestimated what that would mean. The therapy sessions were brutal. Hours of exercises designed to wake up sleeping nerves, rebuild atrophied muscles, and restore function to a leg that had forgotten how to work. She thought boot camp was hard, but boot camp had nothing on the specific agony of forcing damaged nerves to fire, of making muscles that had been idle for months remember their purpose. The pain was unlike anything she'd imagined, not the sharp, acute pain of the initial injury, but a deep, grinding ache that never fully went away, punctuated by moments of searing agony when a nerve would suddenly spark to life. Emma learned to grade pain on a scale she never wanted to understand, the difference between a 7 that let you breathe through it and a 9 that made you want to vomit. But slowly, incrementally, impossibly, things began to change. 6 weeks after she committed to Marcus's aggressive therapy program, Emma felt her big toe move. She'd been lying on her mother's couch, doing the nerve exercises Marcus had prescribed, visualizing the movement over and over even though her toe never responded. Then, like a miracle she stopped believing in, she felt a tiny twitch, barely perceptible but real. She'd screamed for her mother, who'd come running from the kitchen thinking something was wrong. Instead, she'd found Emma sobbing and laughing simultaneously, pointing at her toe with shaking hand. It moved, Mama. My toe moved. Watch, watch. She concentrated with everything she had, and the toe had shifted maybe a millimeter. Rose had started crying too, and they'd sat together on the couch, 2 women who'd been through so much, celebrating the smallest victory in the world. That tiny movement became Emma's foundation. If one toe could move, maybe others could too. If sensation was returning, maybe more would follow. Marcus had warned her not to get ahead of herself, that progress wasn't always linear, that setbacks were inevitable. But Emma was past listening to caution. She'd found her miracle, and she was going to chase it wherever it led. By 8 weeks, she could move all her toes. By 10 weeks, she could flex her ankle, though the movement was weak and shaky. At 12 weeks, 3 months to the day after she'd started this impossible journey, Emma stood without her crutches for the first time. It lasted exactly 4 seconds before her leg buckled and Marcus had to catch her. But those 4 seconds felt like flying. The boot camp graduation was scheduled for the following Saturday, 7 days away. Emma could stand for maybe 30 seconds now, before her leg gave out. She could walk perhaps 20 feet with a cane before needing to rest. What she couldn't do, despite all her determination and effort, was walk the way a sailor should walk. Back straight, chin up, with confidence and purpose. "We need to talk about realistic expectations," Marcus said during their session 5 days before the graduation. They were in the VA's physical therapy room. Emma balanced on parallel bars while Marcus spotted her. "You've made incredible progress, Emma. Honestly, the fact that you're standing at all is borderline miraculous given where you started. But walking into a military graduation without any support, I'm not sure that's—" "I'm doing it, Marcus." Emma's voice was steady despite the tremor in her legs. "I don't care if I have to crawl the last 50 feet. I'm walking into that graduation. Emma, I understand the significance, but I'm concerned about the risk. If you fall, then I fall." She met his eyes, and Marcus saw something there that made him step back. "I've already fallen, Marcus. From 40 feet up, I've already hit bottom. What's one more fall compared to proving I can get back up?" Marcus sighed, running a hand over his face. "You're going to give me gray hair, you know that?" "Too late." Emma grinned, nodding at his temples where silver was already prominent. "Besides, you were military. You understand why this matters." "I do," Marcus admitted, "which is why I'm going to help you, even though my professional judgment says this is insane." He pulled out his phone, scrolling through contacts. "I know a guy at the Navy base, orthopedic specialist who works with wounded sailors returning to duty. He has access to some equipment that might help. Specialized bracing. Support systems that aren't as visible as a cane or crutches. No promises, but let me make a call." The next day, Emma found herself at Naval Station Great Lakes for the first time since her accident. Just pulling through the gate made her chest tighten with emotion. This was supposed to be her life, her world. Instead, she was here as a visitor, a medical discharge, someone who'd almost made it, but not quite. Dr. Jeffrey Chin met them at the medical building, a neat, efficient-looking man in his 50s with the bearing of someone who'd spent time in uniform himself. He examined Emma's leg with expert hands, asking questions about her range of motion, her pain levels, what she could and couldn't do. "Marcus told me what you're planning," Dr. Chin said finally. "Walking into graduation on Saturday." "Yes, sir." "That's either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid." He studied her face. "Probably both." "Okay, let's see what we can do." What followed was 2 hours of fitting Emma with a custom orthotic brace, a sophisticated piece of engineering that would support her knee and ankle without being obvious under uniform trousers. It wouldn't fix the weakness in her leg or make the pain disappear, but it would provide stability and prevent the joint from buckling unexpectedly. "This isn't a magic solution," Dr. Chin warned as he adjusted the straps. "You're still going to be in pain. Your leg is still going to want to quit on you. This just gives you a fighting chance of staying upright. But Emma, you need to understand, if you push too hard, you could set your recovery back months." "I understand, sir." "I don't think you do." His voice was sharp now. "I've seen too many young sailors and Marines let pride override good judgment. They push when they should rest, refuse to admit limitations, and end up doing permanent damage. Is proving a point really worth potentially crippling yourself for life?" Emma was quiet for a long moment, the question hanging in the air between them. Then she spoke, her voice soft but certain. "Sir, with respect, I'm not trying to prove a point to anyone else. Every doctor, every therapist, every person who saw me in that hospital bed, they all wrote me off, said I'd probably never walk normally, definitely never serve. And I'm not angry at them for that. They were being realistic based on what they'd seen before." She paused, looking down at her leg encased in its new brace. "But I need to prove something to myself. I need to know that I gave everything I had, that I pushed as far as my body could go, that I didn't quit when things got hard. Because if I don't do that, if I let fear or caution or realistic expectations stop me now, I'll spend the rest of my life wondering. And I can't live like that, sir. I'd rather risk falling than stop trying to stand." Dr. Chun and Marcus exchanged a look. Finally, Dr. Chun nodded. "Okay, but we do this smart. You're going to practice every day between now and Saturday. Walking, standing, moving in this brace until it feels like part of your body. And if at any point your leg tells you it's too much, you listen. Pride isn't worth permanent disability. The next 4 days were a blur of practice and pain. Emma wore the brace constantly, learning its quirks and limitations. She walked laps around her mother's apartment building until the neighbors started commenting. She stood for increasing lengths of time until her legs screamed for mercy. And every night, she soaked her leg in ice water and cried from the pain while her mother held her hand and told her she was the bravest person she'd ever known. Friday night, the evening before the graduation, Emma stood in front of the mirror in her dress blues. Her mother had picked up a uniform from storage, had it cleaned and pressed until it looked brand new. Putting it on felt surreal. Emma had never technically graduated, had never earned the right to wear these ribbons and insignia, but Lieutenant Commander Williams had personally authorized it, saying that Emma had completed enough of boot camp to wear the uniform to official functions. The woman staring back at Emma from the mirror looked different from the broken recruit who'd left the hospital 3 months ago. She'd gained back the weight she'd lost, her face no longer gaunt and hollow. Her eyes, though still shadowed by pain and sleepless nights, held something new, a hardness born of battles fought and survived. "You look beautiful, Mija," Rosa said from the doorway, her voice thick with emotion, like a real sailor. "I'm not, though," Emma said quietly. "Not really. I never graduated. I never earned this." "Emma," her mother came to stand beside her, meeting her eyes in the mirror. "You've earned this more than anyone I know. Maybe not the way you planned, but you've earned it. Every day you got up when you wanted to stay in bed. Every therapy session you pushed through when your leg was screaming. Every moment you chose to fight instead of quit. That's what makes you a sailor. That's what makes you worthy of that uniform." Emma's eyes burned with tears she refused to shed. "What if I fall tomorrow, Mama? What if I can't do it, and I humiliate myself in front of everyone?" Rosa turned Emma to face her, gripping her shoulders firmly. "Then you fall, and you get back up, just like you've done every day for 3 months. And everyone watching will see what I've seen, that you're stronger than any injury, braver than any fear, and more determined than anyone has a right to be." That night, Emma barely slept. The graduation was at 0900 hours, which meant they needed to leave San Antonio at 0500 to make the drive to Great Lakes in time. Emma lay in her childhood bed. She'd been sleeping in her mother's room since the accident, unable to manage the ladder to her old bunk, and visualized walking into that ceremony 100 times. Step, 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 back straight, head high. Don't think about the pain. Don't think about falling. Just walk. When her alarm went off at 0430, Emma had been awake for hours. She showered carefully, mindful of the waterproof covering on her brace, then dressed in her uniform with meticulous attention to detail. Every button polished, every ribbon perfectly aligned. If she was going to do this, she was going to look the part. The drive to Great Lakes was quiet, Rosa sensing that Emma needed silence to prepare herself mentally for what lay ahead. As they got closer, Emma felt her chest tighten with a mix of anticipation and dread. This place held so many memories: the excitement of arriving for boot camp, the grueling days of training, the camaraderie with her division, and finally, the accident that had ended it all. They parked in the visitor lot, and Emma sat for a moment, breathing deeply, running through Marcus's instructions one more time. The brace would hold. Her leg would cooperate. She just had to trust her body and remember everything she'd practiced. "Ready?" Rosa asked gently. "No," Emma admitted, "but I'm doing it anyway." She got out of the car slowly, giving her leg time to adjust to bearing weight. The walk from the parking lot to the parade ground was maybe 300 yards, a distance that would have taken her 2 minutes before the accident. Today, she gave herself 20 minutes, moving carefully and deliberately, refusing to rush despite the tight feeling in her chest. Other people were arriving for the graduation, families and friends of the new recruits. Emma could feel their eyes on her, saw them notice her slight limp, the careful way she moved. Some faces showed pity, others showed curiosity, but Emma kept her eyes forward, focused on her destination. The parade ground where the graduation would take place was already filling with people. Emma scanned the crowd, looking for a familiar face, and spotted Chief Morrison standing near the front with other drill instructors. Their eyes met across the distance, and Emma saw something flash across his face. Surprise, respect, something that might have been approval. Castellanos. His voice cut across the general murmur of the crowd, and suddenly several heads turned. Her old division mates, Jake Patterson and others who'd finished their A-school training and had been granted leave to attend, were standing together near the back of the formation. They stared at Emma like they were seeing a ghost. Jake broke away from the group, crossing to her with quick strides. "Emma? Oh my God, Emma." He started to move in for a hug, but stopped himself, seeing how carefully she was standing. "We heard you were coming, but nobody thought. We didn't think you'd be able to walk." Emma supplied, managing a smile despite the pain radiating through her leg. "Yeah, the doctors didn't think so either. This is incredible." Jake's eyes were bright with emotion. "You look amazing. You look like you never left." More division mates were approaching now, a small crowd forming around Emma. They peppered her with questions. How was her recovery? Where was she living? What were her plans? Emma answered as best she could, but part of her attention was focused on her leg, on maintaining her stance, on not showing how much effort it was taking just to stand here talking. The ceremony began at exactly 0900 hours. The new recruits marching onto the parade ground in perfect formation. Emma watched them, remembering what it felt like to stand in those ranks, feeling both infinite and insignificant at once. These young sailors had no idea what lay ahead of them, the challenges they'd face, the obstacles they'd overcome, the ways they'd be broken down and rebuilt. As the commanding officer began his address, Emma felt her legs starting to tremble. She'd been standing for almost 40 minutes now, longer than she'd managed in any practice session. Sweat was beading on her forehead despite the cool autumn air. Rosa noticed, reaching out to steady her, but Emma shook her head slightly. Not yet. She could make it through the ceremony. She had to. The graduation proceeded through its formal stages. The presentation of colors, the oath of enlistment for new sailors, the speeches from various officers. Emma's leg was screaming now, the pain radiating from her knee to her hip, muscles that had been rebuilding themselves for months protesting this extended abuse. Her vision started to swim slightly, gray spots appearing at the edges. "Emma, you need to sit down," her mother whispered urgently. "You've done enough. No one will think less of you." But Emma couldn't sit. Not yet, because the commanding officer had just announced something that made her heart stop. "Before we dismiss the graduating class, I'd like to recognize someone special in our audience today. Most of you know the story of Seaman recruit Emma Castellanos, who suffered a severe injury during training earlier this year. What you might not know is that Emma refused to accept the prognosis given by her doctors. She fought her way back from an injury that should have left her permanently disabled. And today, she stands here in uniform, not as a graduate, but as a testament to the warrior spirit that defines our Navy. Emma felt every eye in the parade ground turned toward her. Her face flushed hot with a mix of embarrassment and pride. This wasn't what she'd wanted. She wanted to slip in and out, to prove to herself she could do it. She hadn't expected to be called out, recognized, made into some kind of example. "Emma, would you please come forward?" The commanding officer gestured toward a reviewing stand. For a moment, Emma couldn't move. Her leg had gone from screaming to nearly numb, and she wasn't sure it would hold her as she tried to walk. The distance from where she stood to the reviewing stand was maybe 50 yards, but it might as well have been 50 miles. Then she felt her mother's hand on her arm, a gentle squeeze of encouragement, and behind her, she heard Jake Patterson's voice, quiet but firm. "You've got this, Castellanos. We've got your back." Emma took a breath, then another. She thought about every morning she'd woken up in pain, every therapy session that had left her sobbing, every moment she'd wanted to quit, but hadn't. And she took a step forward. Then another, and another. The crowd had gone silent, watching this young woman in her dress blues make her slow, careful way across the parade ground. Emma kept her eyes locked on the commanding officer, using him as her focal point, refusing to look down at her leg or acknowledge the trembling that was taking over her entire body. Halfway there, her knee buckled slightly, and she heard a collective gasp from the crowd. But the brace held, and Emma caught herself, adjusted, kept moving forward. Step, step, step. Each one a declaration of will over limitation, determination over defeat. When she finally reached the reviewing stand, Emma came to attention as best she could, rendering a salute that wasn't quite regulation, but was the best she could manage with her body threatening to give out entirely. The commanding officer returned her salute, then stepped forward, his voice carrying across the silent parade ground. Seaman Recruit Castellanos, it is my honor to inform you that based on a review of your case and in recognition of your extraordinary dedication and perseverance, Naval Medical Command and the Bureau of Naval Personnel have approved a waiver for you to complete your boot camp training and graduate with your division. Emma's breath caught in her throat. She must have misheard. That wasn't possible. She'd been medically discharged. Her career was over. This had to be some kind of mistake. You'll need to pass a medical review board and complete additional physical training to meet readiness standards. The CO continued. But if you're willing to put in the work, and given what I witnessed today, I have no doubt you'll have the chance to earn the title you fought so hard for. Chief Morrison appeared at Emma's side, his gruff face split by the widest smile she'd ever seen him wear. Well, recruit, you ready to show me what you're made of? Emma's legs finally gave out, and she dropped to her knees on the parade ground, no longer able to hold herself up. But she was laughing through tears, not even as pain and exhaustion overwhelmed her. Yes, Chief, I'm ready. The parade ground erupted in applause. Not the polite, formal applause of military ceremony, but genuine, enthusiastic cheering. The graduating recruits broke ranks, surrounding Emma with congratulations and support. Her mother was crying openly, and even some of the hardened drill instructors had suspiciously bright eyes. Marcus appeared from somewhere in the crowd, shaking his head with a mixture of exasperation and pride. You're absolutely insane, you know that? Your leg is going to be useless for days after this. Worth it, Emma managed, still trying to catch her breath. Totally worth it. Jake Patterson helped her feet, or tried to, but Emma was surrounded now by people wanting help to celebrate, to be part of this impossible moment. Eventually, they got her to a chair, her leg finally getting the rest it had been demanding for the past 2 hours. As the ceremony concluded and the crowd began to disperse, Emma sat quietly, her mother beside her, watching the new sailors celebrate with their families. 6 months ago, that had been supposed to be her. For months ago, she thought it never would be. And now, impossibly, miraculously, she had a second chance. Mija, her mother said softly, I'm so proud of you, not because you walked today, but because you never stopped trying. Emma leaned against her mother's shoulder, exhausted and in pain and happier than she'd been since before the accident. I couldn't have done it without you, Mama. All those nights you stayed up with me, all the times you told me I was strong enough. You gave me that. No, Rosa corrected gently. I just reminded you of what was already there. The strength was always yours, Emma. You just had to find it again. As the sun climbed higher over Naval Station Great Lakes, Emma sat in her dress blues, surrounded by the people who believed in her when she couldn't believe in herself, and felt something she hadn't felt since the moment before she fell, like she was exactly where she belonged. The road ahead would be hard. She'd have to complete months of additional training, prove to medical boards that she could meet physical standards, overcome obstacles that most sailors would never face. But Emma had already done the impossible. She'd walked when doctors said she never would. She'd stood when everyone expected her to fall. And now, with her mother's hand in hers and her second chance secured, Emma was ready to prove that some battles are won long before the world ever sees them. But the victory is no less real for having been fought in darkness. She was going to graduate. She was going to serve. She was going to become the sailor she'd always known she could be. And this time, nothing, not gravity, not injury, not impossible odds, would stop her.